noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, let's get it. Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard, Hans Olsen, Lloyd Cole, -1 Hans Olsen.
Yeah, it's always habit. I just actually turned on.
He turned his mic on?
Turned his mic on.
Just out of habit?
Yeah, it's habit.
Yeah.
No hands on that end.
Nope, no hands. That chair is empty, although we will have a lot of people throughout the rest of the week that will be helping fill in for Mr. Olsen, who is enjoying a little sun right now. That Northern European white skin is going to get beat down pretty heavy with the sun.
And then in January, he'll say, "I haven't taken a vacation since last year."
It's been a year.
I haven't taken a vacation since last year.
Yeah.
So I need to get some time.
Yeah.
Some me time. That is one of my favorite things that he does.
Mama needs to get to a beach.
So, I mean, technically, yes, it was last year, Hans, that you went on vacation.
I did call him on that. So I'm like, oh, so you're not doing the January one? He's like, oh, no, I'm not doing January. I'm like, okay.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
That's what he said.
Okay.
But what he actually does, I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll find out. We'll find out.
Much needed.
Yeah, much needed, much deserved. Holidays are nearly here, too, and we got bowl season coming up, and so we got a lot to prepare for.
I will not call anybody out for taking a couple days. I will not do that.
And I would not either.
No.
Are you saying there's people on staff that would do that?
I'm just saying.
You're saying if I was gone or if you were gone that
I was actually just going to make a joke, and I'm not going to make it because, yeah, we're heading down no.
Oh, it's just us, Lloyd. It's just the two of us, man. Go ahead. Let it fly.
Nope. Won't do it. Not going to do it.
By the way, did you listen to DJ and PK this morning?
Yeah, those guys are...
They were letting Jake just have it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's uncalled for.
They were roughing him up pretty good.
I even had to text them. I said, really? Come on, give the guy a break.
Come on. Guy just got back from, what, Jamaica, Bermuda? Yeah. Oh, I want to
take you. But it's been a long football season.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a grind.
All right. Coming up, Bill Armstrong is going to join us coming up at 1:05, our weekly conversation with him. Speaking of DJ and PK, David James will join us coming up at 2:05. And Mark Durrant will join us at 12:30, just about 20 minutes from right now. Oh, there's some news on the BYU basketball front. Just how big of a story is this? I don't think we're underselling it when saying that this is one of your biggest sports stories in the state of Utah in a long, long time. AJ Dybantsa. Did I say that right?
I'll look to Christian because Christian says he doesn't mess up names because people mess up his name.
Yeah.
So he's made it a point to not mess up anybody's name. Is that correct?
AJ
Dybantsa? Dybantsa. Okay.
Well, Jake Hatch said it. You got to put the E in there. Dybantsa.
Is that correct, Christian? He's saying he hadn't heard that one.
He's going Dybantsa.
Yeah, he's going. See, now he's starting to question whether he did it right.
Mr. Perfection in there.
Mr. Perfectionist. Mr. People mess up my name, so I won't mess up their name.
Have I messed up his name? Esparza, right? I haven't screwed that up, have I?
Well, it's Christian Esparza.
Okay, I'm probably not. Look.
Do you want to be technical or what? Do you want to be correct or do you not?
But I think that's more. I think when a person, as myself, tries to slur that or tries to put the accent, it just makes it.
Hey, I've been trying to get you guys to roll your R's for a little bit, especially when we're talking about, what is it we're always talking about with the food in Albuquerque? The what's those warm?
Oh, you mean the? Why am I spacing it? I just had them at El Matador.
You did just the bites.
Yeah.
What are they?
Oh, geez. Why do you put me on the spot like this?
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. I don't know.
I am going completely blank on what you call them. Anyways. Okay.
Yes.
But
sopapilla.
Sopapilla. It's a sopapilla.
That sounds like chia, like the old commercials.
Yes, it's a sopapilla.
Sopapilla.
Sort of.
Come on, you take the kid out of Southern Idaho. You can't take
I know, I'm just trying to help you
kid.
guys. Trying to make you guys a little more cultured.
Well, I appreciate that. But no, big news coming out of BYU. AJ Dybantsa is going to sign the number one recruit in the United States of America. He had offers from anybody and everybody, and he chose BYU. Why is that the case? Well, great coaching staff for sure. Great culture, great fan base, great atmosphere. Am I missing anything?
No, but by the way, Christian's feeling very sheepish because he's been saying it wrong. Mr. I don't mess up people's names.
Yeah, and now he knows it's Dybantsa.
Yeah, it's Dybantsa.
Okay.
But that is huge.
Huge news. But let's be honest. We are in a world now where money talks. And BYU has made this massive commitment to NIL, to collective, and making sure that these athletes have opportunities. This is a young man who already comes in with his own Nike deal, already a deal with Red Bull. And so this is this is a good day for BYU. I also think it's a good day, certainly for college athletics, because usually this is the kind of deal that only comes down with your blue bloods that would have the opportunity to do things like this, because maybe in the past they were a little bit more morally flexible than, say, BYU was. But now BYU can play in these waters and do so legally in terms of the NCAA. And so BYU's decided to go all in. And it's interesting because you've got a lot of people out there that are like, oh, BYU is using tithing money or whatever. No. I don't think people really truly appreciate the kind of financial wherewithal that a lot of BYU boosters have. BYU is flush with boosters that are willing to give considerable amounts of money. And now, back in the day, it used to be, hey, if you donate to BYU, you give us money, and then we will decide where that money goes. Well, no, that's not the case anymore. Now, in this world of NIL, you can skip the university, go right to a collective or right to the player, and you can set the parameters of where that money goes. If you want AJ Dybantsa, or if you want a particular player on the football side, and you tell the collective, go get this guy, and I've got that kind of money, and you ask the collective, hey, what's it going to take? Well, we're going to need $750,000 for that quarterback. All right. Who do you want me to write the check out to? The kid or you, and you distribute it? What do you want to do? And that's the kind of power that a lot of schools now have that maybe they didn't have in the past if they were unwilling to cheat. Now, there's no such thing as cheating anymore. You can cheat all you want. Because you can cheat all you want because it's no longer cheating. It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying. The fact is that it's the old Wild West right now, and BYU's taking advantage of it. And if you have the boosters that have that kind of money and are willing to spend that kind of money, then by all means, go crazy. I had a college coach tell me once that in this day and age of college athletics, if he had unlimited money at Idaho State University, he could go take Idaho State to the Final Four. Because you can talk about coaching all you want. You can talk about X's and O's and game plans and all this stuff. But let's be honest, when it comes to college basketball, it's about one thing. It's about the talent. You know the old adage coaches use? It's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. Well, that's what it boils down to. He who's got the best athletes usually wins. John Calipari, he's not a particularly good coach. Really, if you look at the schemes that Calipari runs, if you look at the X's and O's, he's not that great. If you have to really line up a coach and say, hey, I'm giving you, everybody's got equal talent, the best coach is going to find a way to coach these guys up and win games. John Calipari is not going to get it done. There's a lot more. In fact, I'd say in terms of just his ability to coach the game of basketball, I would put John Calipari behind Craig Smith. I'd put him behind Jared Calhoun. I'd put him behind Kevin Young. I'd put him behind pretty much everybody here in the state of Utah in terms of their ability just to flat out coach the game. But the one thing that John Calipari has always had is the best athletes. when he was at Kentucky, when he started going down the one-and-done path. He had the best athletes. He had the best horses. And more often than not, he won and won at an extremely high level. Because he doesn't worry. It doesn't matter about coaching. It just matters about your talent level. Well, BYU, now look, Kevin Young, I think, is a heck of a coach. And certainly the dude can flat out recruit. But now you're also seeing that, okay, not only all of that, but we're going to give you the best talent and give you the resources to go out and get the best talent. And if you're a BYU fan, don't feel self-centered about this or don't feel like you're, getting away with one. It is what it is. He who's got the most gold, that's the rules. He who has the most gold probably wins the most games and gets the best talent. So, yeah, right now, enjoy it. Go on your victory lap. But also know that it's about the money. It's a lot about the money. And I don't know what that number is. I've heard a lot of coaches out there speculate as to what the money and what the total amount is. And if it's even in that ballpark, that's a ridiculous amount of money. But who am I to get here and hop on the air and say, oh, BYU's doing this and they shouldn't be doing that? No, look, if you got the money and you are willing to spend the money and you got boosters that are willing to hand it over to you, by all means, go do it. Yes, absolutely. Go do it. Go spend that money. Go get those players and enjoy what comes out of it. Because the Marriott Center is a really special place to watch a basketball game. That is an environment that is almost second to none in all of college athletics. When that place is rocking, there are very few spots that rival it. And it is extremely special. And players know that too. So if you're a young man and you're a high-level 5-star blue-chip recruit and you're playing in the best conference in terms of basketball, so you're playing against the best competition to showcase your skills, you're not still stuck in the West Coast Conference, you're playing Kansas, you're playing Texas Tech, you're playing Oklahoma State, you're playing some of the best teams in all of college basketball week in and week out, Kansas State. All these schools that are considered high-level NCAA tournament, top 4, top 5 seed teams, you're playing them week in and week out. So, number one, you get to showcase your ability, okay? Number two, you're playing in a great atmosphere in front of, what is it? What's the capacity of the Marriott Center now? 17,000, 18,000? And that place is packed. It's loud. So you get that kind of crazy collegiate home court advantage that you get to showcase your skills in. You've got a great TV contract, so you're going to be on TV, and everybody's going to be able to watch you play. And then you throw on the fact that you're making some good coin along the way, too. Great coin. So why wouldn't BYU be in the mix on all of this? And when you got the guys on ESPN First Take wondering, hey, why BYU? Well, BYU checks the boxes. What does, in the infamous words of Karl Malone, what Duke have did that BYU have not did? Now, I'm being serious. I'm not comparing the legacy of the two institutions, but what can the kid get at Duke that he can't get at BYU in terms of immediate ability to showcase your skills? Number one, you don't have to be at Duke to be a number 1 overall pick. You don't, okay? Number two, you're going to get paid, and I'm fairly certain he's getting paid as much at BYU as he would have at Duke. He's playing the best competition. One's in ACC, the other's in Big 12. I mean, flip a coin as to who's better year in and year out. One year it'll be the Big 12, the other year it'll be the ACC, but they're neck and neck in terms of overall competition. And then, again, you got a head coach that's got a lot of ties to the NBA. But again, the NBA is going to find you.
Education, Scotty.
Okay, these kids aren't going for an education. AJ's going to be enrolled in exactly one semester of classes, and they'll all be online, and I guarantee he may not.
Might as well be taking bowling.
And honestly, he may not ever have to turn in an assignment. I take that back because you got to get through, you got to get 2 semesters in. This isn't football. It spans over 2 semesters. So, yeah, he's going to have to go fall and spring semester. But as soon as the NCAA tournament's over, he can just bounce. So is academics really that important? No, we all know that. Let's not kid ourselves here. Nobody cares about academics.
And I was kind of joking. I mean,
I know you were. I know you were.
By the way, BYU actually, that is actually a pretty dang good education.
Oh, it's a great education.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's a tremendous education. That's no knock. I'm just saying that AJ's not over there deciding where he's going to go play college basketball based on the engineering department at BYU. You would love that to be the case for some of these guys, but I don't think that's pretty high on his priority list. I was. No, I probably shouldn't tell that story.
Oh, come on, it's just you and I here.
People will figure that one out pretty quick as to what I'm referring to. I was asked my opinion on a certain set of coaches, and I said, well, this coach could be good, this coach could be good, and this coach will be good. And I said, but this coach will not be good when it comes to the media. And the person I was talking to said, well, okay, I appreciate that, but I'm not hiring based on your ability to conduct an interview or not. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fair. Not high on the priority list. Academics, not high on the priority list for a lot of these kids these days, which is totally fine because why do you go to college? Honestly, when you're sitting with your kid and you're deciding where that kid is going to go to college, not as an athlete, because let's be honest, most of 99% of you out there are like me, and you are passing on DNA to your kids that will not allow them to play college athletics. And so when you're academically looking at programs and you're saying, okay, we got this school available, this school, and you're like, okay, what do you want to go into? Well, I want to be an engineer. Okay, well, let's look at the engineering program at these schools. You pick a school based on, probably a little bit in terms of family history and recognizability and things along those lines. But ultimately, you want to prepare yourself for your profession so you can go out and be as educated as you possibly can be and make as much money as you possibly can, right? Okay, well, same with these athletes, right? They're picking schools based on where they can go to be prepared to be a professional. You may be going to school to learn how to be an accountant, and that's your profession of choice. This kid is going to BYU because he feels like, number one, he can make the most amount of money, and number two, they'll prepare him to be ready to go to the NBA level. And to do that, you got to play the best competition. You have to get good coaching and all the things that go along with it. And according to AJ, that program is BYU. And again, BYU, tremendous job. And look, you can have all the money in the world, and maybe it does all just come all the way down to money. But still, you need to have a charismatic coaching staff. And you got to have a staff that can look that kid in the eye and say, look, you come here for the 2 semesters you're going to be on our campus. We're going to push you. We're going to make you better. We're going to develop you. So when the NBA draft rolls around, you'll be able to step in and be that number 1 overall pick. And we will do nothing to get in that way. In fact, we will continue. Look, I've got Kevin Durrant over here, who I coached in the NBA. Is he a pretty good player? Yeah, he's not bad. Huh. All right, Devin Booker, guess what? Coached him too. Pretty good player. I know what it takes to win, and I know what it takes to be an NBA player. I can check all those boxes for you. Oh, by the way, we can get you a lot of money along the way. Check, check, and check. So, again, bottom line is, why is all of a sudden Duke more attractive in that regard than BYU? When you can get good development, you can get paid as much or more than Duke, and you have the same level of competition. You're playing game in and game out. Makes sense, right? And again, I'm not comparing the history of Duke basketball to BYU basketball. I'm not comparing that or the blue blood or the legacy or the tradition or any of that other stuff. I'm not. I'm just saying right now, if you're making a decision right now as a freshman, where do I want to go play my 1 year of college basketball where I can get the most money and get developed and get showcased and play the best talent and have a chance to win a whole bunch of games? BYU's right there. All right, 12:25, Hans and Scotty coming up next. Mark Durrant will join the program. We'll chat with him, BYU color analyst for the basketball program straight ahead on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I told you we went to this country writers thing in Nashville where you saw these different people that write hits. But mixed in the middle was this old timer. He sang a song about his dog dying. I'm not kidding. Like there were people going, play a happy song, like yelling at this guy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Guy played like 3 songs and everybody was like, oh, I'm so depressed. Yeah. You know what? Read the room.
Yeah, right.
By the way, and he said before he sang the dog dying song, he's like, nobody's picked this one up. I can't figure it out. I can. The song was called For Pete's Sake, and the dog was named Pete.
It's a little on the nose.
I'm just coming to this theater to rock out on some country I barely like, and they got to sing about a dog dying.
Dying dog, for Pete's sake.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad, dude.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The great Mark Durrant will join us coming up here in just a moment. Right now, though, it is a Jazz Ticket Tuesday, which means we're giving away Jazz tickets. That's right. Caller number 12, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You'll see the Jazz take on the Phoenix Suns at the Delta Center on Friday, December 13th. You want those tickets? Be caller number 12. Again, 801-575-ZONE. If you don't win those tickets, totally fine. Guess what? Coming up next hour, we'll give them away again at 1:30, and then another pair at 2:30 and 3:30, 4:30. You get the idea. We do it every Tuesday, all season long. Jazz Ticket Tuesdays, right here on your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, so big story of the day. Frankly, biggest sports story in the state of Utah in a long, long time. And I don't think I'm going over the top on this one. AJ Dybantsa, the number 1 recruit in the United States of America, has signed to play at BYU. And to help break it down, Mark Durrant, kind enough to hang out with us, color analyst for the BYU radio broadcast. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing really good today, Scotty, really good.
I'm telling you, man, this team is, they're already locked and loaded this year with a lot of talent, but it just keeps taking step after step after step. What kind of bizarro world are we living in right now? This is nuts.
Yeah, it really is unheard of, right? This wouldn't have happened ever for BYU, but a couple of things have aligned themselves to even make it possible. I still can't believe it happened, but one, obviously you go to the Big 12, so you're in a league that's respected and will get you exposure. 2, you've got resources now where you can compete as far as NIL and stuff with anybody in the country, which is amazing to me that that's happened for BYU. And also the NIL itself, I think, has helped schools like BYU, because before, BYU wasn't going to pay you money. And I don't know what schools were paying what and all that, but there was a lot of money under the table that was being paid to guys, and BYU wasn't going to do that. And so they were kind of out of the mix along those lines. But now it's out in the open, and BYU has the resources, and they're willing to pay it, which is amazing to me. So that's not a hindrance. You've got a coaching staff that has NBA experience. So a lot of these guys in this situation, it's going to be a nice stop. They want to have a good time where they're going and have a good experience, but it's about the next step after college. It's about getting to the NBA. You got Kevin Young, who's got great contacts, great experiences, worked with guys like Kevin Durrant, Devin Booker, and others. And he can look you in the eye and say, I've been there. I know what it takes to get you there, and I will get you there. And BYU hasn't necessarily had that in the past either. The honor code used to be kind of something that was thought of as hurting BYU. And I think now, and sorry, I'm rambling on here, Scotty,
no,
but I think
great.
now the honor code is almost a benefit to a lot of these kids, because a guy like AJ, he's a businessman. He wants to go where there's not a lot of distractions, where he can focus on playing basketball, doing what he needs to do to get to the NBA. And a lot of the kids now are more mature. It's not about going and having a party college experience. It's about where can I go that's the best environment for me, that I can focus and get better at basketball and then get to the next level. So, again, a long-winded answer, but a lot of things had to line up for that to happen. I didn't think it would ever happen. But BYU's now put themselves in a spot where they can at least compete and be attractive to a guy like AJ. And also, AJ's experience being here in Utah, I think, helps. I mean, he understands Utah. It's not a scary thing to be in Utah. He's been to the games. He's seen the great crowd support. He knows what it's about. So that's another hurdle that he necessarily didn't have to overcome. And it's just amazing. I mean, I really can't believe that we're talking about this because, just my long history with BYU, I just never thought I'd see the day unless it was some kind of unicorn LDS player that, like a Sean Bradley type, there could be those guys. But, this is amazing, and it's a great day for BYU. It's a historical day, really.
It really is, and I think it's a historical day for the state of Utah overall in terms of sports because you just don't see stories like this come across very often where you have a player of this magnitude signing and playing with an in-state school, whether it be Utah or BYU. And I just think it's a fantastic note of, again, we talk about the NBA and we talk about the NHL coming to Utah and hopefully Major League Baseball, and then you see five-star recruits signing to play here. But you also have to have that commitment from the university. And when the NIL and the collective world hit, I think there was some concern from some of us on the outside looking in as to whether or not BYU, even though they could jump in those waters, would they be willing to jump into those waters? And not only have they jumped in the waters, they've cannonballed into those waters. Are you surprised that it's been embraced by BYU leadership saying, heck yeah, let's go, let's do this?
Well, it certainly seems counterintuitive to what I've experienced my whole life. And I don't necessarily think it was bad. I mean, BYU's always been very conservative about the money they spend and the resources. But I think, again, things have changed. You've got, it really is an amazing. If you can put a great basketball product on the floor, it can bring you great exposure, positive publicity. Look what we're talking about. The whole country's talking about it. He's announcing on, Stephen A. And everybody knows that the top recruit went to BYU, and that's great exposure. So there's real value in having a good athletic program, whether it be for, the state or the church or whatever. I think there's value in it. I think they see that, but also I think there's kind of a new mindset with the administration, with the athletic department, with the church, like I said, and the ability to move quickly to hire Kevin Young and to pay him what you would need to get him here. I think there's a lot of voices now that are powerful voices that have convinced whoever needed to be convinced that this is a wise investment. It's not something that we do casually, but it's something that can provide great value and exposure and can do great things for whatever your purpose is. And so anyway, I mean, a lot of things had to change, and I think have changed. And now it's about, we've got a great opportunity here. What can we do with it? And that still remains to be seen, but it's pretty special to see what's going on and see kind of paradigm shift and minds change. And I hope it can continue.
Mark Durrant, color analyst for BYU basketball right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. As a big story with BYU landing a recruit of this magnitude, the number one recruit in the United States of America, and a lot of people believe in the draft that he will be in the running for number one overall pick. I want to get your thoughts, though, on this year's team. Tough loss on the road against Providence. But a team that's still trying to find itself from a chemistry standpoint, still trying to come together. I don't think anybody doubts that the talent's there, and when they hit the ground running and they figure things out, they're going to be a dangerous team. But what are your thoughts on the early part of the season with this squad?
Well, I certainly think there have been some positive signs. The Providence was certainly a misstep and maybe a step backward. But as you know, it's tough to travel across the country to play against a solid team like that, and it can get out of hand. And Providence shot the heck out of the ball, so you kind of take that with a grain of salt, try and learn from it. But it's not the end of the world. But I think BYU's making progress. But even when we talk about guys like Yegor Damon and Cannon Catchings and AJ Dybantsa, I mean, they're still pretty young, and as good as they are. When you're playing against high-level competition and great coaching, it's going to be a difficult transition, and you have to learn from it. And they did a nice job, I think, on Yegor at Providence. They've got a lot of returning players that have been around and have played good teams. They're playing with UConn and those kind of guys every night in, night out. So they're going to do some things that are going to frustrate the young players, as good as they are. And so that's obviously seeing those guys mature and get better. And then, Dallin Hall is still kind of getting back healthy. And if you can kind of get those young guys moving along, maturing, getting better, and then you have that solid core of veterans like Richie Saunders and Dallin and Foose and Trevin Nell, then I really think this BYU team has a chance to be very good. They'll have to be the big, being in the Big 12, but I think this is a team that can be good, and I think the sky's the limit for guys like Yegor and Cannon. But it's a learning process. I mean, there's good players out there, as you know. You watch Utah State. That's a great team. They're playing great. I mean, there's good players at every level in every league, and you better be ready to play. And so it's a challenge, but certainly great to be in a position where you have a lot of young talent to work with and mold and shape and try and get better.
I mean, you were a incredibly talented basketball player back in the day, but could you have taken on the pressure that some of these kids are going to face as true freshmen, walking off a high school court and immediately being thrown into the Big 12 and said, all right, this is your team, go lead them?
Oh, man, I can't imagine. I was thinking about Yegor in that Providence game, and all the talk was that every NBA team had a scout there. Everybody is coming to see you. I can't imagine a kid coming out of Russia. He's out here in America, and this is his future and livelihood on the line. And man, I've got to play good. And then you start out and you're not playing good, and then how much more pressure does that add to you? Oh, I've got to start playing better, and that just kind of gets in your head. And it wasn't a great performance, but listen, these NBA scouts, they know the deal. They're not going to let one performance kind of dissuade them. They're looking at potential. They're looking at skill set. They're looking at a lot of different things. And so, it's not the end of the world for Yegor, but I can't imagine the pressure that these young kids have. But I will say they're certainly more able, maybe not able, but experienced on how to deal with pressure now than when I played. I mean, these kids have played in AAU, and they've traveled, and there has been exposure, and Yegor's played in Spain and Russia. I mean, these kids are farther along mentally than I ever was, and they also have a lot more mental resources with coaching and stuff like that. So I think they're more prepared to deal with it, but that doesn't mean it's not there, and that doesn't mean it can't get to you. And fortunately for me, I wasn't really all that good, so I just had to kind of keep my head down and not mess up too bad, and that's what was my goal. But these guys are talking about their livelihood and draft order and pick and millions of dollars. I can't even imagine. So
if you were 18, 19 right now, and you grew up in this world of basketball, the style of basketball, do you think you could have been a stretch big and shot the three ball?
Probably not. I mean, I just, I was just lucky to be on the team.
Yeah, stop.
But I played hard, and there's always room for guys, that play hard and do things well and smart and play a role. And I mean, somebody's got to set picks for Yegor and AJ and pass them the ball, and that was kind of my role. So I think I would have had a role somewhere. But these guys are special. I mean, BYU in the past, Scotty, has had really good players. I mean, really good, super basketball players. But the transition to the NBA, they just didn't have the right bodies and NBA skill set to be successful, I think, in the NBA. So that's been the problem for BYU. But now you've got these guys like Yegor, like AJ, like Cannon that meet all the things that the NBA is looking for: size, speed, ability to handle the ball, and length, and the shooting. I mean, they've got it all. There's nothing on the NBA checklist that these guys don't have, whereas in the past there's been a couple boxes that you couldn't check for really good BYU players. And so that to me is the difference, is what we're seeing now is you talk about NBA players and lottery picks and developing them. Well, good luck with that unless they're starting with some really good physical characteristics that are going to be attractive to the NBA, and that's what these guys bring. And now it's Kevin Young's job to really make them progress and learn and be who the NBA wants them to be as quickly as possible.
Well, Mark, we appreciate it. Congrats. Never a dull moment down at BYU right now. It's cooking, and it's a really fun story to watch and see how this thing develops. And can't wait to see these guys out on the court. Can't wait to see the rest of this season. But I think we're all kind of peeking ahead to next year, too. So it's a lot of good things going on right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of great things if you're a Cougar fan. And for this is good for the state.
I agree.
It's good for everybody. And we've got some great basketball here in the state, college-wise. And these academies are incredible, the talent they're bringing. So it's great to have Utah be kind of a basketball hotbed and have people talking about you. So it's fun.
Well, I know I was going to let you go here, but I love college basketball. I'm a sucker for college hoops. I always have been. I know some people, say, well, it's not the NBA. I get it. I get the deficiencies of the college game, but I love the college game, and I love being around it. I love calling the games, and I would love nothing more to see Utah get back to being a bit of a college basketball state. I know football is always going to reign supreme, but over the last 20 years, we've seen it shift from pretty heavy basketball now to pretty heavy football. I would like for the college basketball game to kind of make some inroads there and make a comeback.
Yeah, amen, brother. And certainly Utah State's doing their part. They've looked great amidst all the transition they've had. BYU is making these great steps. I think Utah has made some progress as well. So I love it. There's nothing, and you know it, but there's nothing better than being in a great college basketball environment with two great teams playing, where it's just a packed house. There's just no other experience like that in basketball. And so I too hope that, Utah can continue to kind of be a player in the scene and produce great basketball, because that makes it fun.
You're the man, Mark. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Love you, brother. Take it easy.
Back at you. Happy holidays. Mark Durrant, color analyst, BYU basketball, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up next, what you may have missed. And then we shift gears, and we will chat coming up at 1:05. We'll talk some Utah Hockey Club with Bill Armstrong, general manager of the Utah Hockey Club, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
College football, where it was with geographical conferences, was better. I hate an 18-team Big Ten that features Oregon and Washington playing on the Big Ten network. That makes no damn sense.
Oh, of course.
None.
No.
So what are we doing here? And then you got the situation where Indiana doesn't have a good win on their schedule, but they make the college football playoff because they don't play everybody in their conference. How can you be the champion of a conference if you only played half the teams in your conference?
Right.
What are we doing? I don't like it, but you embrace what it is. You embrace the chaos. It's entertaining one way or the other, but I'd prefer it to be the way it was as opposed to where it is right now in 2024.
The athletic director for Alabama said, well, now you force us into reconsidering what we're going to do with our non-conference schedule.
Everybody from Alabama, just take a seat, man.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Bill Armstrong's going to join us next, the general manager for the Utah Hockey Club, for his weekly conversation. We'll chat with him, get his thoughts As to the hockey club's back-to-back wins, we'll talk about that. And also what's brewing as we get a little bit closer to the trade deadline, other things that could be brewing in terms of that team. Really fun couple games, too. We'll talk to him about some of the great moments when they're holding on to a one-goal lead and are in the middle of trying to kill off a power play. And not only do they hold on, but they add a shorthanded goal to end up winning that game 4-2. Really, really impressive. All right, what you may have missed, Jazz have a few days off before back in action. And look, you score 141 against Portland and then immediately turn around and give up 141 to Sacramento. Jazz right now with the third worst record in the NBA at 5-18 as we're well past the quarter mark of the NBA season. And it's just like this kind of year we all knew what we were walking into. We knew what this team was going to be, and now it's about looking at those draft picks. And right now, if you just base it on record alone, the Jazz would be picking number 3 overall. Now, again, with the lottery, you never know how that's going to play out. But look, this team's on schedule right now, Lloyd.
It's a weird place that the Jazz have never been before.
Can't say I like it, but it is what it is.
And I was joking because I'll be honest. Doing post game for that Utah, the Utah pre and post this season, those last 8 games were very painful to talk about because nobody likes talking about losses.
I know,
and the way they happened, it was painful. So I was joking with Jake. I was like, "Man, this is really painful." I was like, "Try talking about what I've done for that many games." It's like, okay, fair. You know what? You got me. You got me.
There was back in the old days, the old 1280. I showed up and I'd been working, I don't know, like a Jazz game or a bunch of stuff and working a lot of shifts. And I walk in the morning and David James goes, "Man, you're working a lot, man. You must be tired." And I said, "You have no idea." Just because, it's just a turn of phrase, you just say that. And DJ looks at me, who at that point was doing Jazz pre and post on TV and doing all of his other stuff. And he looks at me and I'm like, "I'm so sorry, because you do know more than anybody how tiring this can be."
Yeah.
And, because he looked at me with that death look. And everybody loves DJ, and they think he's the nicest guy on the planet. And 90% of the time he is. But, boy, that 10%, when you get sideways with DJ, no bueno.
You don't want to be there.
You want no part of that. You don't come back from that one. All right, Bill Armstrong joins us next. Hans and Scotty, this is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Number 1. Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The great Hans Olsen out today and out this week. Was kind enough to hang out with us yesterday, and then he is taking a much-needed vacation, and we'll get him back on Monday as we make the stretch run down the holidays and bowl season and everything else that comes along with it. So many good things coming up, man. I'm fired up. Love bowl season. Love everything about it. Love all the good stuff we got going on. And Hans and I will actually be on the call on the national broadcast for the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Lloyd, where we will have Northern Illinois taking on Fresno State.
How cool is that, by the way?
Yeah, I'm fired up.
That is your guys' home state.
I know, right?
And you're calling a game that's been there, a bowl game that's been there for a really long time. That's got to be a little bit of pride there.
No, he and I did the game when it was BYU and was it Western Michigan, I want to say? One of the directional Michigan schools. And it was the Zach Wilson where he went, did not throw an incomplete pass that day. And it was an absolute joy. It was the first game we ever did together, and it was an absolute blast. We had a great time. So looking forward to that. That'll be Monday the 23rd, and we hope to have that for you on the air because we won't be doing our regular show, so we might as well put our game on that
Hopefully
day.
You guys get familiar with each other, early in the game.
Yeah, I think.
I assume it's going to be a little bumpy for the first
We'll work out some of the chemistry issues and get going.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to chat with Bill Armstrong coming up here in a moment, get his thoughts on the Utah Hockey Club back-to-back wins. Hey, I know they're not great right now, but if you look at the last 2 games, I mean, in terms of, the Utah Hockey Club and their last two games that they've played, with their wins against Buffalo and their wins against Philly. And you just have to take a step back and say, all right, this team continues to play really well and starting to just kind of figure things out. And if you look over the last 5 games in which the Utah Hockey Club has gone 3-2, they've won 3 out of their last 4. You back it up 5 and go back to that loss to the Oilers 4-3. They've scored 20 goals over the last 5 games. So the offense is really starting to click. I mean, you look at their point totals. They lose to the Oilers 4-3. They beat the Golden Knights 6-0 on the road, I might add. Then they lose to Dallas 2-1. But then they beat Buffalo 5-2, and then they beat the Flyers 4-2. Now they've got a huge one coming up tonight against Minnesota, an absolute monster game against the Wild, and really looking forward to that one. This is one of the best teams in all of the NHL coming into town, so this is going to be a really fun game tonight. If you have a chance, I would highly suggest you go out and find a way to get tickets to this one and really enjoy what should be a great atmosphere coming up at the Delta Center, because this is going to be two really good teams, with Utah playing really good right now, especially on the offensive side. And then against the Minnesota team that, now they lost the other night. This is game 3 of a 3-game road trip for the Wild. But if you look at coming into that game, they lost to the Kings 4-1. Before that, they'd ripped off 5 in a row. They beat Buffalo, they beat the Blackhawks, Predators, Canucks, and Anaheim, and then lost to the Kings. Now that the Ducks, the Kings, and Utah, that's their 3-game road trip they're on right now. And I'm curious if we have a chance to chat with Bill, get his thoughts on exactly what you see sometimes on road trips. Now, we look at games in the NBA, and I've covered the NBA for a long time. And there are certain games on a schedule you call a scheduled loss, where it's the last game of a 5 or 6 game road trip. You're playing a back-to-back. There's some games you just look at and say, okay, that's probably going to be an L. And you just kind of, when you put the schedule together, when it comes out, and you're like, and you try to anticipate, okay, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. There are certain games on there you just say, all right, the schedule maker pretty much gave us a loss there. I don't know if that exists. I'm sure it does in some way, shape, or form in the NHL, but I just don't know if you can classify this game at Utah to wrap up their road game as a scheduled L for Minnesota, especially after they came off a loss of their own. The Utah team, again, continuing to score a lot of goals, starting to figure things out. The fourth line's playing really well from an offensive standpoint. Defensively, they're getting some stops as well. So there's a lot to be really fired up about. And again, game tonight, 7:30 start. You'll hear it right here on The Zone, but I highly suggest if you got a chance to get tickets, get yourself out to that game and enjoy what should be a really fun atmosphere as Utah and Minnesota go toe-to-toe. And Minnesota on the season coming into this one, we mentioned they'd won 5 in a row, but they are 18-5-4, including a ridiculous record away from home of 11-2-3. That's obscene. They're 11-2 essentially on the road, 11-2-3 on the road. Whereas Utah, 4-5-2 at home. Not great, but again, that's kind of who they are. And when we talked to Bill, going back a ways, he said, several times that like, hey, this is, when Utah got off to that really great start to the season, and he was one of the first to come on and say, all right, we're going to tamp this down just a little bit here. Let's come back down to earth a bit, because this really isn't who we are. And then the team, I don't want to say bottomed out, but they started to slow down a little bit, started to pick up a few more L's. And he said, look, this is more of who we are. Right now, we're more of a 500 hockey team. Now, we anticipate that we'll eventually be much better than that. But this year, maybe not. Maybe this is kind of who we are right now. And as they continue to make steps and continue to get a little bit better, step by step, then they hope to continue. But there's a lot of Dennis Lindsay feel to this Utah Hockey Club, the way that Bill Armstrong approaches it. And remember, Dennis Lindsay, his big MO was, we're not going to skip any steps. We're going to do things the right way. We're going to build this thing up. And to his credit, now granted, there were some misses there for Dennis, and he'd be the first to admit there were several draft picks that probably weren't the best. In fact, I think we can all say that they weren't the best. But for the most part, he built a really good team, and that team ended up winning a bunch of games. But they didn't skip any steps. They took it every step of the way to make sure that they got to the point that they were a contender. Now, did they get over the hump? Obviously not. And so at that point, Danny Ainge comes in, Justin Zanuck, and they tear it down, and now they're rebuilding back again. And this Jazz team, same thing. Not skipping steps, taking it step by step. As difficult and as painful as it may be as you're looking at a Jazz team that's 5-18 on the season and the third worst record in the NBA, but then you look at the upcoming NBA draft and you say to yourself, okay, well, those are steps that you need to take. And hopefully that means that you can add players and personnel and talent to your team that will allow you to take those additional steps. And you'll have the salary cap space and the assets to be able to acquire talent on draft night, whether it be via trade or eventually via free agency. So there's a lot here to look at. There's a lot to kind of address. And Bill Armstrong, we hope to be able to hear from him at 1:30. We were going to play that Bronco Mendenhall conversation we had yesterday. I don't know if that's available, Lloyd, if we can play that here. But we had a chance to sit down and chat with the new head coach at Utah State, that being Bronco Mendenhall, and a really fascinating day yesterday where he was, and I think you get to a certain point in your life when you're a coach, and Bronco was never this way anyway. Like, Bronco was never a sugarcoat kind of guy, but he also was a guy that wasn't as brutally blunt as he was at times yesterday. I mean, he really said, look, there's going to be heavy roster turnover. There's going to be a lot of things we're going to address. We're evaluating the talent on this team right now. And said, look, there's a lot of people out there that say scholarships aren't tied to performance, but that's not how it really works. It kind of is. And Utah State and that new coaching staff is taking a long, hard look at what they're going to do to try to evaluate exactly what they're going to be building for the future. And that involves a lot of hard conversations with probably a lot of players. And so when you see a team that's got a high level of turnover in the transfer portal, some of that is something that they're not happy about, and some of that is something that they actually work towards and put in motion and said, okay, no, we are moving. We do want you to go in a different direction. We do want you to go in the transfer portal. So Hans and I had a chance to sit down and chat with him yesterday about all different kinds of topics, including his memories of playing against Utah State when he was at BYU.
As the head coach at BYU, I remember specific comments. So here, the stadium was full, but man, some of the best comments to a head coach. I don't. University of Wyoming, that was a rival in terms of comments to a head coach. Utah State, I think, had first place. From what I still remember some of them, and they scarred me for sure.
Well,
I got scars.
Yeah. I remember a game that you played, and you had a really good team at BYU, like you had most years, and the game was for the most part out of reach here. Utah State scored a couple late touchdowns, and the crowd went nuts. It was
like they were winning the national champ. I remember that. I was like, this is unbelievable.
And you were in your postgame, and I was sitting in your postgame press conference, and you were a bit flummoxed by it. But you're like, the game was out of reach, but yet the fans were just crazy because we gave up a couple late touchdowns. That shows you the fan support you're walking into.
It is, and right, to be nurtured, to be grown, to developed, and my job, right, is to make sure results happen that are worth that. So besides the hire, right, the immediacy of the results and a tangible outcome is super important. How the outcome happens also, that ends up filling stands with people, right, that not only love the result but what's going on, and they already know how to. They already know what kind of the environment that how to create that environment here. That's already done. And so just lots of cool things and potential here.
When you look out this window and you look at the stadium and you look at the backdrop, there's just not a more picturesque, incredible place to be in this world. What do you envision it? When you look out here and you look at the stands and you look at this whole environment, what do you envision this being in the next 5 years, 6 years while you're here?
Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest destinations in college football, one of the most unique. So I think meaning that the idea of a true college town, right? I love that for college football currently. You know, with the monetization, with the lean or tilt toward professionalism, with kind of the realignments that have gone now kind of nationalized. When you think now about a place like this, right, with the history here, with the successes in the past here, with the unique culture here, and against this backdrop, and against or in this city, it just is. I think there's a differentiation that can be made here that really is powerful, a powerful draw, but also a powerful experience for the kids that come. So, I see just a lot of really cool things in terms of distinguishing us from kind of the rest of what college football is.
You know, when I spoke to you at Mountain West Conference Media Day, and I joked to you that I didn't have New Mexico on my bingo board for Bronco Mendenhall, and you said it wasn't on mine either, but you went through the criteria of what you were looking at to get back into the coaching world, and you said to be able to make an impact immediately, to be able to revitalize a community, and you went down the list and you checked off a lot of boxes, and I looked at the Utah State in terms of culture and things that need to improve here, and a lot of those applied. Now, the community support is here. You've got that already, but other than that, there's a lot of boxes that can be checked that kind of filled the same thing that you were looking for in New Mexico.
Okay, we're going to get back to that conversation with Bronco Mendenhall coming up here in just a moment. But joining us now is Bill Armstrong, the general manager for the Utah Hockey Club, who's kind enough to carve out a few moments for us. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing? I love his name, Bronco.
I know, right?
I wish that's an incredible name.
That's a hockey name right there. That guy would have been good on the ice.
Yeah, so it would have been great on the ice.
Hey, congratulations. Couple big games over the weekend, and I know they're hovering around 500, but I don't care. Anytime you go on the road, you beat Buffalo and Philly back-to-back. You got to be proud about those wins.
Well, absolutely. It was great for our team. You know, it's just showing the progress we've made. We're finding ways with being injured and being young to win hockey games on the road, and that was impressive for us. Never easy to go into both rinks and walk out with the points. So I really liked our effort from the group and just the fight that we have.
So when you look at this offensive explosion as of late, as I mentioned, you got 20 goals over 19, 20 goals over the last 5 games. What do you attribute that to?
I think our group, when we focus on stuff and we don't do certain things well, coach will address it, and our group's really good at coming back and going at it. I think one of the things we got away from just taking shots and putting them at the net. We just got away from playing simple and putting pucks and people to the net. And don't you know, like the first one we got in Philly where Michael Carcone just drives wide and throws it at the net and it goes off a skate. And I think good things happen when you play simple hockey with this group. And I think we can even grow our offense even more with just some simple hockey, going to the net and putting pucks there.
And it's one thing to have the offense, really start clicking, but the offensive depth, I mean, your fourth line has really developed nicely in terms of offensive ability.
Oh, absolutely. Kevin Stenlin, the big man in the middle, and then Michael Carcone and Alex Kerfoot, they're just buzzsaws out there for us. And, they're just, when you get that secondary scoring coming up, and that's usually what wins our games. We're pretty good 5-on-5. Sometimes, both lines, your first line just matches against their first line, and they're null and void, and it's up to your third or fourth line to kind of get it done for you. And I really think our fourth line has just stepped up lately and provided that secondary scoring to allow us to get some wins.
You got points in 6 out of your last 8 games. You're 5-2-1 over those last 8 games as well. Just how impressed are you with what your team has been doing and the momentum, and can that be carried into a game like tonight against one of the best teams in the NHL?
Well, Minnesota is one of the best teams, and you got to like that little bit of momentum we've gathered and building off that. They're a great team. They're stingy. They don't give up much. They got great goaltending, and you really just got to play them a certain way. And I think for us, our specialty teams, hopefully they can kick in on the power play and PK, and we can stay with them 5-on-5. But they're super, speedy team. They got a lot of guys on the first line that can really put the puck in the net. So it's going to be a great battle for us to go against them. And, we always look forward to playing them. They're always great games, and it's going to be a battle tonight.
This is one where you really want to showcase what the Delta Center is about in terms of playing a team like this. Now, you're getting a great crowd support. It's loud, it's nasty every game, but in particular, you want it to be really special tonight.
Oh, absolutely. We want it to be loud. You know, that's the one thing that we get feedback from the other teams that come in here. They're like, wow, is it loud in there? And so, you know, for us, we need that support from our fans. You know, we get home onto that home ice, and we just love the fact that I would have to say it is so far the loudest building we've played in all year, and hopefully we can make it a little louder tonight.
You look at this landscape of the NHL and what you're dealing with right now, and just how impressive this team has been in certain situations. When you look at consistency, and you mentioned at the beginning of the year when you guys got off to the hot start and then kind of came back down to earth a little bit, you're like, okay, that's kind of probably who we are at this point in terms of the building process. Is kind of a 500 team. Is consistency, is that kind of the next step this team needs to take to make sure that that they continue on the steps of progression that you want them to take at this point?
It is. I think that's probably one of our strengths of late. We've played really consistent hockey. It's a part of getting to your young guys and just getting them and being prepared to play. It's the NHL is unrelenting. Like I always say success is rented in the NHL, and rents due every day. And that's hard to understand, I think, when you're a younger team. But I think what I liked about our team so far is we got a mix of some really good experienced veterans that have won cups, and they're really, doing a great job of making sure we're ready to play, not only with our young guys, but also the entire team. And it's been enjoyable to watch. Consistency is a huge part of it. You saw that the other night where we were bound and determined to get back-to-back wins, which we haven't done a lot of this year. And that has to do with our veteran leadership and our captains and making sure we're prepared to play.
Minnesota had won 5 in a row before losing to the Kings the other night. And I'm kind of curious about this. And I'm not saying this in terms of Minnesota or what to expect from them tonight, but in the NBA, I've covered it for so many years, and I always know that last game in a road trip, teams have a tendency to struggle a little bit. Can that apply sometimes in the NHL when a team's been on a 3, 4, 5 game road trip, that last game, sometimes you don't necessarily see them? And again, I'm not applying that to Minnesota in terms of tonight. I mean, look, if they want to struggle tonight, that would be great, and I'm not complaining, but I'm just talking about overall trends that you see from time to time in the league.
Well, I think you just live for that, being that last team that the team plays in that 7-game road trip. You just live for that, but it doesn't happen very often. But you never know. Every night in the NHL is a battle. This league is completely even from the top team to the bottom team, and it's a battle every single night. So we're not going to take them lightly, no matter how many games they've played on the road. And they're a good team. They're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. So it's going to be a battle tonight.
When you look at the youth on this team, it's so much fun to see and so fun to project into what the future looks like, because you've got, you're one of the league leaders in points among skaters 25 years and younger in getting points from those guys. We talk about Gunther and Cooley and McBain and these guys. I mean, just seeing the talent and seeing it develop, I got to imagine that puts a smile on your face as a GM.
Well, listen, we're an entertaining team to watch. Sometimes, I lose hair over it, but that's also a good thing, and they play for keeps, our guys. They go out there and play every single night, and they're an entertaining group to watch. I mean, they push the pace, and, we've got a ton of speed on the club. So I'm extremely excited about where we are as a team. Being as young as we are, and then how hard we play. Over this course of the next 4 years, we're going to continue to add top-notch prospect talent into the group. We're only getting better, and I love what Coach has done, from the start of the season till now. We've improved our team. We've got better in every area. So it's going to be a great battle tonight against one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. Let's get at her.
Veggie, Stauber doing their thing, 2 goals or less in 7 out of the last 9 games. Just how well are they playing right now?
They're great. Both of them have, if you think about Jackson Stauber, he's a guy in the American League. He's 7-1, his total record in the NHL. So he's come up and done exactly what we've asked of him, and that's stopped the puck. And that's not an easy thing coming out of the American League. He's done a nice job for us. And Veggie's just been a brick wall for us back there. He's been solid almost every one of his performances. So when you have good goaltending, it just seems everything else seems to fall in place. It's a huge part of our game to have good goaltending every night, and our guys have done it. we've been banged up there with Connor Ingram, and Jackson stepped right in and done a great job.
Yeah, Veggie, Ingy, Stauber got a nickname at all, or anything you're working on with him?
Stobbs.
Okay. There you go. That works.
Stop it as many times as you can.
There you go. I love it. Hey, Bill, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us, and look forward to catching that game tonight. Can't wait. That's going to be such a great atmosphere against a really good team.
Thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
You got it. There he is, Bill Armstrong, General Manager, Utah Hockey Club, for his weekly conversation right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up next, we'll get back to that conversation we had with Bronco Mendenhall. If you missed it, we'll replay some of that straight ahead. It's all right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty Chin. That's
right. Yeah!
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment brought to you by RGS Exteriors and Construction, obsessed with quality results. Whether it's rain gutters or a complete exterior overhaul to your home, they can do it all. 801-280-3110. That's 801-280-3110. Call Tim and his crew. They'll get you squared away and get you quotes. Before the end of the year, you can secure some pricing before increases may hit coming up in January. We're going to get back to our conversation with Bronco Mendenhall here in just a second. But remember, it's a Tuesday, which means it's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and we're giving away tickets. Call number 12, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. You'll win a pair of tickets. See the Jazz take on the Phoenix Suns at the Delta Center coming up on Friday, December 13th. So that's right. You want those tickets? Call and claim them right now. You can go see the Jazz in action coming up on Friday. So let's continue on our conversation Hans and I had with Bronco Mendenhall yesterday. Wide range of topics. The new head coach at Utah State University, anchoring that football program. And, I went back to Media Day back in July, his first Media Day as a head coach in New Mexico. And I had asked him back then, and I said, hey, Bronco, look, I'm telling you, I didn't have New Mexico on my bingo board in terms of where you were going to go coach next. I think all of us thought he was going to get back into coaching, just didn't see it in New Mexico. And we talked about this the other day. There were certain criteria that Bronco was looking for that he mentioned he wanted to hit, like he wanted to make a difference. He wanted to see organizational change. He wanted to ignite a community. He wanted to have a challenge. And outside of the community impact, which, let's be honest, Utah State, that community is already fired up and ready to go. There's a lot of boxes that he can check on that list at Utah State. And he talked about wanting to check off those boxes and how difficult also it was to leave New Mexico.
There is, and just to be clear, man, I did not anticipate after 1 year. That was not ever on the radar. It was so difficult just to, I'm not going to say rationalize, but make sense of, man, I just got here. This thing is turning. We're going to pull this off. This is, the community saw that, the kids saw that. Everyone was so excited and becoming, wait, New Mexico's going to have great football, and this is going to be awesome. And then when I decided that I knew what was at stake, and that's hard. Then you frame it against the things that are most important, which developing people and impact and communities, all that is. And then when I see my wife with my boys, and knowing that we can do all that together while they're now in college at this new stage, man, tough, but still that ranked higher. And so to do all the things you just said, checklist, not identical, but similar, program at a completely different stage, history different, but to be able to put all the things that are most important to you together at the same time, that just was the difference. And so, to your point, we and Holly and I, we love the transformation process. When I was hired at BYU, and I don't know if most folks remember, they remember more toward the end, but that was a pretty tough time. There had been 3 losing seasons, and they were trying to find a coach, an interim athletic director. I was the defensive coordinator there, and pretty much was the last resort. I got the job because, like, who else is a Division I coach that's LDS? And so it wasn't like I was just kind of the last resort. And that time period was a tough time period. And when Holly and I when we got ready to leave BYU, we started reminiscing one day, and almost all of our memories and our most impactful moments were from the beginning. When we go to Wyoming in year 1 of being a head coach, they turn it over 5 times in the rain, and we become postseason eligible. And it was just like watching the kids in the locker room, and that's at BYU, right, where bowl games are expected. You got to win 10 every year, right? They were just out of their mind excited because they got back to postseason. And then it went 11-2, 10-3, 11, and then it jumped again. But almost all our memories were those transitional moments of when it wasn't so good to being good. And we were captivated by doing that again with a place that cared about something more than football. Also, Virginia then kind of checked those boxes. Like New Mexico checked the boxes when we came back. They're just, there's nothing random about it. We're just lucky that this aligned. But it doesn't mean it wasn't tough to just leave where we were.
Is it exciting to get your family back into Logan?
Oh, my gosh. It's just so the boys, they're roommates at BYU, one going to grad school, 2 others as undergrads. So they won't be coming to Logan, but they're in Provo. And so just the chance that Holly can see who they're dating, long weekends they're coming, that they can come for the games, that there's this access point. We can meet in dinner when we put our we'll buy land here with agriculture and put a roping arena up, and the kids will come ride. And there's a way to be a college football coach. There's a way to do that just isn't accessible when you're farther away. And so my wife, Holly's she's out of her mind. I am too. But
what a cool vision, Bronco.
It's awesome.
That is a cool vision that you've got this idea to be back to family and still have the western side with the agriculture and the land. And what a cool vision for you to get to live out.
Utah State is that place. And so even though I'm talking about all these things, right, the primary thing in terms of my business part is championship football, right? So, and we all know what that takes, what lifestyle that takes, what commitment that takes, what the hours take. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know. On a coaching perspective,
So when you're doing that, which is going to take everything we all have to pull that off here, and that's the plan. We intend to do that, and we think we can. But what if there's a half hour and the boys happen to be home? And they're seeing Holly, or what if there's 12 or 15 more opportunities per year? And so I don't want our listeners to think, man, they're just coming to vacation with their kids, right? This is the job is to transform and continue this program growing and becoming. There's been great teams here and lots of success in bowl games and 10-win seasons. And so it's not like this hasn't been known before. This is just now a new era, new expectations, a higher level of commitment. And yeah, so I get it.
Bronco, I had a lot of questions when you'd left Virginia. I had a lot of people ask me, why would he do that? And I'm sure there were a lot of reasons. My explanation to people was, when I watch you coach, I always felt like you put so much into it your whole life that I was like, I think he needs a break. Like I think it's either all or nothing for Bronco as far as a coach. Would that be somewhat accurate?
I think it is accurate in what led to that decision. So yes, I'm like that, and that's hard on families. It's hard on relationships. It's hard on anything when not only what the job requires, but the way someone is wired to choose to do that kind of job also is kind of all or nothing. That's hard. And so even when you're home, sometimes you're not present, and those hours are not so long. And I really thought, after that year at Virginia, my 6th year, our kids had just left. We were now empty nesters, and I was looking at my wife, and I had promised her a home in Montana, like when we got married, right? That was a long time ago, and I was like, I don't think I've done what I was supposed to do. And so it was just kind of an intentional pause to reflect. And then Holly and I looked at each other, and I was like, man, are you in for this again? Like, because it was going to have to be both of us. And she was still in before. It was me that's I was just like, man, I'm not sure I've done this right. And we just both became it just became clear to both of us that what we were doing, that's the pause that we did, and built a home for our posterity, our ranch is there, so all that's set. And then it was now what? And we were like, yeah, we both know what we're supposed to do. And
change lives.
That's it. Yeah. And so we held hands and ended up in Albuquerque, right? And that year and what was happening there was just so cool. And we intend for that to be the same here. The results have to happen, right? The expectations have to be met. The record has to be all that. But in the meantime, that other part is the most lasting part. And I'll just share one story. I know I've been talking for a second.
Oh, you're all good.
So in the 18 months-ish, the 2 seasons we were in Montana, it was really interesting. And it wasn't the intent, but my phone, when the seasons would kind of start, texts would start rolling in, and I wasn't counting to begin with, but so the numbers kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, but where they were coming from was captivating. And it wasn't former administrators, and it wasn't boosters, and it wasn't ward members, in terms of the volume. Almost all, well over 90%, because I started keeping track just as like, what's happening? Almost all former players. Only one of this sample size that is giant, only one mentioned a game, a score, or a season. Only one. Every other one of those texts, we're talking about moments. Hey, coach, you remember when?
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, does college football really reflect that right now? And the outcome and the money and the NIL and the transfer portal and all those things that are part of it, right? And here is this giant sample size to a coach in Montana building fence, right? And only one of this, at that point, that would have been 16 years worth or 17 years worth of coaching. Only one of those mentioned a game, a score, or a season. Wow. And so, yeah, we talk about sports, it's big, etc. But really, those kids were remembering the moments of impact along the way. And so if we're not coaching and leading in a way that's promoting that, then it can just be only outcome. And yes, that's important. So again, I'm not diminishing that. But if you're only chasing that, and so when Holly and I were talking about coming in, again, we just doubled down on, the outcome really matters. But if we're not doubling down on the influence and impact part, because what clearly the feedback we just got is that's what they're remembering most, and it's what mattered to them most. And so we've worked really hard to blend those two, the results with that other part. Still learning and still trying to apply that really effectively. But gosh, man, I cry so much easier now. I don't remember ever crying before, and it's like, but the relationship part, something's happened, It gets you. Yeah, it gets you.
Well, coming from a guy who grew up on a farm in Idaho, I'm curious to know what goes into 40 acres of fence line. Did you get a post hole digger, or did you get the pounder thing?
It was such a cool thing. So I had a skid steer.
Okay.
And so the drivers they have the posts with the pointed ends, and so me and my one son Raider, Breaker was on a mission, Cutter was off at school at BYU, but Raider had just come home from his mission, so that's why I welcomed him home. Hey, we got 40 acres. And so
throw these gloves on, son.
Pretty much, yeah. So one of us would be in the skid steer, the other would be aligning the post pounder, vertical, make sure the level's right, etc. And so 40 acres is quite a bit, right? Yeah. And then to do the horse fencing as well, which are kind of the small squares of the mesh. And to do that, but what a great thing just for he and I to do. And during a season where I would have been with other people's kids, just a reconnection and a re-entry point from him back from his mission.
So cool.
I wouldn't have traded. I mean, so as I'm talking now, for that time period, that was a good trade for my family and for a relationship with one of my sons. And, and that place now is there. And every time we look at that fence, but it's every time we're going to go riding, every time his kids will ride, we can, remember that? And it's cool.
Yeah, it's way cool.
How excited are you to be back in this state to recruit it?
Because really excited.
The talent is very fertile here.
My gosh, from the time I left, where I could sense it happening when I was finishing my time at BYU, so the emphasis on football, the quality of the coaching, the programs, the new high schools, I mean, you could just sense, hey, here it comes. And what it is now, and I really this program can predominantly fill its roster yearly if I do a good job, right? Selecting and assessing and attracting. If I do a good job, the majority of this roster yearly can come from this state. And then, possibly there's a supplement from Texas, California, but where else do you really need to go other than what I've seen here? And man, does that fit well with the identity of this institution, right? Utah State football and the state of Utah. It aligns really, really well. It might be the thing I'm most excited about, is putting together a roster with that emphasis.
You've had such an affinity towards walk-ons. How concerned are you with the 105 rule?
That's been your whole your whole thing, right, Bronco?
Well, so here's the thing with that. There was a statistic given in the press conference today that 80 guys that I've coached have gone on to the NFL. It's actually 115 when you consider guys that have signed. Some of the contracts that happen later where the kids make it into a camp, they battle their way in, but then they're not making it. So it's 115 of those guys. Not one
battled and made it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in addition to the 80, right? Okay. And so anyway, the cool part was is there wasn't a single 5 or 4 star in that. They were all 3 or less. So to the developmental walk-on-ish. And it doesn't mean all walk-ons.
Of the 115, none of them were a 4-star?
They were
3 or less?
3 or less.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So the developmental part, and right, the system has changed as well, right? So from what 5-star used to be, what it is now. I mean, so you have to look at what the consistency truly is. My point is most were developmental players, and meaning they came in and then became through the process. That doesn't mean they were all walk-ons, right? They were scholarship players that are certainly part of that whole list, but there's walk-ons that moved into scholarship positions. So whether it's a lower-tiered player becoming a starter or an NFL player or a walk-on becoming a significant thing, that process is part of the development of people, right? Where you work this hard and you hit a metric and you move, right? And you work hard and you hit a metric and you move. And it'll be interesting to see with the structure. So some conferences already, as we already know, have worked to maintain 85 scholarships, right? The SEC,
I believe the SEC.
SEC has, and another conference just followed suit. I just slipped my mind. But another conference has followed suit. So they're maintaining 85. Well, the roster limit is 105. So what will 86 through 105 look like? There's still going to be funding of some sort for that tier. Through how the collectives work, how NIL works, and also how the House settlement will work. No one knows, but that pool kind of becomes what your equivalent to walk-on is. But let's just say at Brigham Young or Virginia, our roster size is 123 or 126. Okay, well, so here's 20 other players now, and most of these programs around the country are going to hold those players through spring practice. Well, so this window for the portal after spring practice of these kids that are they're on the verge of scholarship, right? Or they're walk-on players. I don't know what that number is going to look like, and I'm predicting right now, right? I'm not for sure. I think at the end of spring there's going to be, I mean, some coaches that I know their roster size is 140. Yeah. Some is 145. One is 150. So that's 45 players from his roster that are practicing at the Division I level, Power 5 level, A4 level, whatever we call it, right? They're practicing and competing at that level. And that would be 40 off one team. So where do they go? It'll be really interesting to see where, when the market is saturated with all those kids, where do they go? And where do they land? And let's say my roster's already at 105. If I can't take them, so then you predict, man, are there going to be players that would fit us in that pool then? Or do you try to make sure your roster is as full as possible now through the portal, and you look at your place in the market and where could the best possible fits and players be? So there's another, with this 105 number and the walk-ons, I don't think anyone truly knows, other than you could absolutely run your program still as scholarship 1 through 85 and 86 through 105 are walk-ons to keep that developmental thing going. The quality of player, there's going to be competition for those spots now, almost like they have to be recruited. And there's probably going to be some incentives built into that now, which is great for the kids, but not the same as the true walk-on while they're going to school and working and doing all that, which I'm not saying is bad. It's just going to be different.
There he is, Bronco Mendenhall. And that's just, we still have probably about 10 more minutes of that conversation. If you want to hear more of it, go to our podcast feed. Just search Hans and Scotty on your podcasting platform of choice, and you will have that available to you, as well as all other parts of the show, all of our big interviews, insight, analysis. Everything is right there available for you in podcast form. Just search Hans and Scotty again on your platform of choice. All right, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Take a quick break, come back. Whole World News next, and then David James joins us at 2:05 right here on The Zone.
Gentlemen, may I present?
This is JJ and Alex.
Let's start off with the good news of Kyle Whittingham coming back. Tell me what that means for this Utah team, and what kind of legacy are we going to see Kyle Whittingham hopefully set himself up for this next season?
He's worked too hard. He's accomplished too much of that program. He's the Lovell Edwards of Utah football. You think he wants to go out 5-7? Of course not. The challenge for Kyle Whittingham now is to come back with a renewed energy and vigor to turn this program around. Kyle Whittingham has to rebuild his own program. There's a lot of changes already. We're up past 15 players that are in the portal. He's got a brand new offensive coordinator in Jason Beck. Utah looks completely different now than they did even 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is going to be a lasting part of his legacy, is to turn around the program that went 5-7 and turn them into something special next season. And a lot of work Alex is going to have to go into that.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Number one.
Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans Olsen on vacation for the rest of the week, which means we got to find a lot of people to fill in those size 15 shoes of his. And to help fill the void, the great David James. You hear him every morning with DJ and PK right here on The Zone. DJ, how are you, man?
Good, but when you hear someone introduced as the great, I always think, they're old.
The legendary David James.
Yeah, right. All that says. What's going on, Scotty? What's up?
Felt weird yesterday, I'm not going to lie, seeing Bronco Mendenhall up there in front of a Utah State logo, wearing a Utah State tie. And I was just going back to one of the first jobs I had doing sports radio here in Utah was covering a press conference of his down in Provo when he was introduced as the new head coach at BYU. And it just feels like, you talk about feeling old, man. I'm like, geez, I feel really old right now. That was almost 20 years ago.
I'm going to go glass half full on that one. Here's the good news, Scotty. We're old. We remember the press conference. The really good news, though, here, and the silver lining is we're not old enough to remember Bronco laying on the grass doing the snow angel after Oregon State beat BYU, and he was mad he didn't get recruited.
Yeah.
We're not that old, so we got that going for us.
We'll take the little victories any way we can, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
From if you're the AD at Utah State, do you make this hire? Do you feel good about this direction for Utah State?
Well, that's multiple questions. Which one would you like me to answer? Pick your favorite.
If you were the AD at Utah State, would you have hired Bronco Mendenhall?
No, I would have hired Jay Hill.
Okay, let's say Jay told you no. Would you then hire Bronco Mendenhall?
Not having interviewed all the other candidates, that's a tough one to answer, not having done the search.
Yeah, I know.
But, yes, I would have. I totally I think Bronco is, at worst, he's a safe hire, and at best, he's a great hire. There's a lot of unknowns, so to sit here and say Bronco is going to do this or Bronco is going to do that, for better or for worse, I think that's risky. They're about to change leagues. We don't even know all the teams in the league. So how's that for a great unknown?
Yeah.
We don't know the TV contract and the exposure. If I were the Pac-7, used to be 12, 10, 8, soon to be, 9, beats me. I would be trying to get, there's, I think, 4 Texas schools that may or may not be in play. I'd be trying to get them to finish the league. And I would be talking to ESPN and Turner about TV deals. And I might be talking to CBS also for that. Well, you'd probably talk to everybody. But I think there's a lot of opportunity with ESPN and Turner because I think there's some unused TV windows.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what they're hoping on is that, they can help, try to not necessarily corner the market. You still have USC and UCLA and Washington and Oregon out there. But those are a lot of windows you can fill with a lot of West Coast teams.
There are going to be 4 leagues that can play late-night games. The Big Ten, the Big 12, the Mountain West, and the Pac, however many they turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, that's wide open. But there's definitely TV windows, and it looks like now that Turner's not going to have NBA, that they're picking up some playoff games. They picked up a Mountain West game for True TV. If I were them, TNT does movies for guys who love movies, so we can all sit there and watch Jason Bourne race around town for the 100th time, right? And then they'll run out Star Wars, and then they'll run out Bond, and we all know the franchises they'll run out. Right?
Die Hard's always in the mix, yeah.
Die Hard, here comes Lord of the Rings again. You know what you're going to see when you turn it on. So, and that's fine, and there's a market for that, and they should keep doing it, but there's a better market for live sports. So on Saturday, why not? Right? I would argue on Friday night, and I've said that for a couple of years, and I said that to somebody in town, and the conversation was in confidence, and they turned and watched. And to this day, I can't guarantee that they thought I was stupid, although maybe they did. I also can't guarantee that they thought, whoa, we're having those conversations, and I'm going to look like I'm leaking. I have to walk away. It's the full spectrum, right? But Fox messed around with it this year. And it was, mostly Big Ten, but they did do some other stuff. The West stuff outside of the Big Ten early in the year also. And I just look at Friday night, nobody's watching primetime TV. And people are streaming and people are going out. I think sports is your best bet. And if you're going to have football on Saturday, put football on Friday. And, the best lead into football is football. The best way to promote football is to use football. So stop outthinking the room, So I think there's windows out there for these teams to jump into. So I like Bronco as the hire. I get why they would do it. He's got a familiarity here. He's going to grind here. You don't have a lot of NIL. I don't think Bronco wants to pay 4-star guys a lot of NIL.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
We saw the Jake Heath story. It just makes him uncomfortable. He was a JC guy and a grinder. He is comfortable with grinders. Kyle Whittingham was a linebacker. He is comfortable with linebackers, not quarterbacks. We all know what we know, and football coaches know what they know, right? So I think there's a lot of kids in the state who can play football, but maybe they can't quite play at the Power 4 level, or maybe people think they can't. So I think there's I don't think it's an accident. He said he wanted to recruit Utah kids. I think he sees what we see. I asked Kyle Whittingham once, how many Division I-A players are there in the state? And then I paused, or maybe I said FBS. And he said, and I saw him hesitate. I said, wait a minute. I mean Group of 5. This is when they were in the Pac-12. And he said, and he knew the number off his head. He says there's probably like 40 to 45 Division FBS players. And he said, but there might only be about 20 to 25 guys who can play in the Group of 5. There is a level of expectation. Let's face it, coaches miss, right?
Oh, yeah.
Scadaboo was in the Big Sky at Sac State, and he jumped right over the Mountain West into the Pac-12, and he looks great, and he is the weapon, the best offensive weapon, and they have a couple of good ones, but he's the best offensive weapon on the conference champions, right? So people miss all the time, but nonetheless, I think there's going to be 10 to 15 to 20 guys out there that Utah State can compete to sign. And let's be honest, Colorado State's going to come and recruit here. Nevada's going to come and recruit here. Mountain West and Pac-12 teams will be competing over these guys. And some of them you may sign and they may transfer because they may get an offer because they may really blow up. But I can see Bronco doing well with those guys, with those recruits.
Let's say BYU beats Colorado, Coach Prime in the bowl game. 5 years from now, what do we think about this BYU team? Do we look at them as a great team or what could have been team?
I personally will look at them as a very good team, but not a great team, and I will look at them as a what could have been team. the Kansas game was winnable.
Yeah.
And they didn't win it. Now, you can't crack on them too hard because they had 3 or 4 games that were losable that they won. There was no guarantee they were going to go down the field at the end and beat the Utes. There was no guarantee they were going to go down the field at the end and beat Oklahoma State. There was no guarantee they were going to pull that SMU game out in the second half. So they were good in close games. But, man, you lose a game by 4 and your defense is dominant and you have a turnover. A guy thinks he's a defensive back and it's really a punt and he gets hit in the helmet by the ball. That's a bad break. And I'm sure that they all go back and look at the film, and if this guy had this block and if this, ball had been caught, and, I mean, you can woulda, coulda, shoulda the thing to death. But I think the playoff is clearly – conference championships and the playoffs are the level for greatness, and they didn't get that. But to say they're chokers and losers and blah, 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 way too harsh. I know that's hot take radio, hot take TV, hot take social media. But, man, if you get to 10 wins, you've had a pretty good season.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, they got to 10 wins. So either they're 10-3 or they're 11-2. So that's why I would label this very good. I wouldn't label it great because you got to reserve something for when you win the conference title, go to the conference title game, win the conference title, go to the playoff. And I think that's the standard for the Utes looking backwards, right? We remember the Rose Bowl seasons one way. We remember the years they got to the conference title game and lost another way. And we remember the 9 and 10 win seasons that they had, like 2014, 15, 16, 17 through there. I think they had 3 of them where they just barely missed. One year, UCLA beat them in the red zone, basically. UCLA got touchdowns and Utah got field goals, and UCLA beat them at Rice-Eccles Stadium and knocked them out of the conference title game. Those weren't bad years. You win 9 or 10 games. That's a good year. But they wanted to be in the conference title game. And once they got to the conference title game, they wanted to win it. Once they won it, they want to go to the Rose Bowl. And honestly, if they get to a year where they're in the playoffs and they win those games, you won't be able to duplicate exactly what happened in the Rose Bowl. But we'd look at those seasons differently if they'd beaten Penn State or if they'd beaten Ohio State.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I filed that away,
Yeah, you don't remember the fact that, they lost to San Diego State earlier in the year. You talk about the fact they went to the Rose Bowl. That's
exactly right.
Yeah,
right. And you don't play woulda, coulda, shoulda with the game you could have won. But when you're 10-2 and you're not in a conference title game, you do play woulda, coulda, shoulda with the Kansas game.
Yep, absolutely.
Like the UCLA game. And I think going back to Bronco and Utah State, that'll be the interesting thing is, like, if you look at Bronco's record, he's been a head coach for almost 20 years. If this guy has a losing season, he has a very good reason why. First year at New Mexico, good reason why. Losing season, but the most wins they'd had in 8 years. It had to be built up, right? First 2 years at Virginia. All right, he took over. He changed everything. He had to get his guys in. And in years 3 and 4, he's winning, and he's in the Orange Bowl. So you can live with those. And those are the only 3 losing seasons he has. However, I do think your Aggies, Scotty, are going to want those 10-win seasons. And they've had 4 of them since the program kind of had its rebirth about, 15 years ago, going on 20 years ago?
Yeah.
15. They've had 4 of those seasons. And I think 2 ended in conference championships. And one in the WAC and one in the Mountain West, and another in a conference title game loss. And how many of those is Bronco going to have? He hasn't had a 10-win season since he left. Now, there's probably good reasons for that, right? He only had the 1 year at New Mexico, so that's unrealistic. And he got close in the ACC, but, the footing wasn't even. They don't have the history, the tradition, the budget, the drive that other schools do. Other schools are playing for keeps, and Virginia's playing to be pretty good. So I can explain that away. The Aggies are going to want 10-win seasons. If they don't get them, your Aggie brethren are going to do some complaining. He's capable of cranking those out. But, again, will he? I can't guarantee that. I don't know the composition of the league. They're going to be at a disadvantage in money, but how much? There's some question marks there. So we'll see how that plays out.
By the way, the Mountain West Conference, while you were just talking, announced the football matchups for next year. Now, no dates attached, but it's like the NFL. At the end of the season who you're playing and where you're playing. You just don't know when you're playing. And Bronco Mendenhall.
If there's not Utah State at New Mexico coming out of your mouth real quick, I'm going to be real disappointed in the Mountain West.
You are correct. Utah State will be at New Mexico next year.
Of course they will. That is made for TV. That will not be a game that's streamed. That will be a game that is televised.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there will be some cranky New Mexico fans at that one, for sure. I mean, there's not a lot of fans that go to those games anymore, but the 30 that will be there will be probably pretty upset.
Oh, don't kid yourself. There's going to be 45 there because a few people are going to come out for that one just to boo Bronco.
There you go. It'll bump up from 30 to 45 for sure.
They really will get a bump in attendance.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, they do have smaller crowds, but they will get more. We all love stories, and that's a story. People returning home, and college football coaches have lots of homes. That's one of his homes. He's worked there 2 different times. People returning home is a story. So fans love it as much as the media. We love it because fans love it.
Yeah. All right, so obviously biggest story of the day is BYU snagging the number 1 recruit in the country. It happened in the middle of your show. Were you surprised? Did you feel like this was a possibility? And what does this say about the BYU program right now? Again, multiple questions in the same question. Dissect them any way you would like.
I felt like it was a probability. And I felt like it was enough of a probability that we were booking guests yesterday, and there was a guest who wanted to be on at 8:30. And our producer, Jake, texted. We have a group text. You know, the show meeting never stops, right? Anytime anybody has something, you dump it in the group of 3. And he texts, hey, so-and-so wants to come on at 8:30. And PK, I didn't even see it. PK responded before I even saw the first text. PK responded almost immediately. Nope, that's when AJ's announcing. No matter what happens, it's a story, and we have to talk about it, see if they can do 8 or 9, right? And the guest picked him. It was Mike Folta, the Utah Hockey Club. 8:30 kind of his standard time. So he just moved to 9. Because the thing about AJ is he'd been, BYU was in the Final Four and had been reported by all the recruiting services as being in the lead. But these quote-unquote other schools are closing. Well, in the NIL era, that means write a bigger check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, especially when you see who the schools are. Alabama just went to a Final Four. Kansas, North Carolina. Kansas and North Carolina are blue bloods. If you have your Mount Rushmore of college basketball programs and you don't have Kansas and North Carolina on it, you got to redo your Mount Rushmore list. You're wrong, So could one of those suddenly come up with an offer? Michael Jordan calls, and I'm Michael Jordan, and I think you're going to get a call about a check from an NIL guy here in a minute. He's going to Carolina. I mean, so I never knew if it was done. I didn't think it was done until it wasn't. Now, apparently there's stuff out there that he had signed earlier. But, man, guys get out of those all the time now.
Oh, yeah.
All the rules that we had 10 years ago, they don't really mean anything now. Even the stuff, PK brought it up this morning, the stuff Arizona State got in trouble for like 3 years ago, I don't even know if you get in trouble for that now. The rules are changing, and coaches privately will tell you it's the Wild Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
Except that it's crazier than that. That doesn't even do it justice. So, I mean, I always thought there was a probability based on all the reporting that the people who follow that closely do, and there was a lot of, unity in the community. But, it's not across the finish line until it is. So I didn't know for sure. Other people may have known for sure. I didn't know for sure. Is it good for the program? Yes. He wore BYU gear on national TV and talked positively about the school. I think that helps other sports, I think that's a positive for the football coaches. How much of a positive? Depends on which kid they're recruiting. Because if you're behind on NIL, all this other stuff, doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
But you don't want people dismissing your school out of hand. Hey, if the best college basketball player in the senior class wants to go there, maybe I should take a look there. You want people returning your texts, returning your phone calls when it's just getting started. Kyle Whittingham, when he went to the Pac-12, said, hey, we're just getting indoors. We couldn't even get in that door before, right? So I think worst-case scenario, this is going to help you get indoors. Whether you seal the deal comes down to 50 other things. But it helps them get in the door. So that's a positive. I don't know how much you win, and I know there's a stat out there about BYU and Missouri, being near the top of the list. I think they're 1-2, I'm not sure which order, on most NCAA tournament appearances without going to the Final Four. All Cougar fans want off that list. I don't know the one-and-dones get you there. It really is in that regard about having guys who play together for multiple years and older guys. 20 and 21-year-olds probably have an advantage against 18 and 19-year-olds. Not all the time in all cases, but in general, mostly.
Yeah.
So you want to bring in really talented guys because obviously talent wins, but you do need experience and maturity too. You're calling Aggie games. I mean, look at the experience and maturity Falslev has, and look at how he's playing year to year. right? It's adding up. Ian Martinez, look at the experience and maturity he has year to year. It's adding up. These guys are going through a new coach. If you've been in the Aggie program 3 years, you're on your third coach. And nonetheless, they're undefeated. And the guys who stayed in the program and you can see it. It's yielding results, and you can literally see it possession to possession.
You know, this is my 8th year doing Utah State games and my 5th head basketball coach.
That's awesome. I literally have to go back and count it up when I want to talk about it with PK. The numbers change. I got to make sure I got them right. Is that 5 and 8? And I looked it up the other morning in a commercial break. Yeah, okay, it's 5 and 8. That is crazy.
Yeah, and
football doesn't turn over. Football doesn't turn over as fast, but people talk about Aggie football like it turns over as fast, and it's like you're confusing that with basketball.
Oh yeah,
the football said a little more. I mean, Gary Anderson did 4 years. Matt Wells did 6, didn't he?
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, it was 6. Yeah, 13 to 19.
Yeah,
yep, you're right. Yep.
And then Blake Anderson did.
From then,
4.
Yeah. Well, you had the Gary Anderson 2.0 in the middle of that, but yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so Blake did 3.
Yeah. Yep.
He did 3, and he wanted to do 4, but events, the course of history changed.
Speaking of coaches coming back and not coming back, do you think Kyle Whittingham knew all along he was coming back from maybe the middle of the season, or do you think that was a decision he just made over the last week or so?
I don't know. I just want to preface that with I don't know.
And I'm asking you to speculate. Yeah.
And I'm definitely speculating. So let's be clear on that. I'm definitely speculating. I think he wanted to come back. I don't think I go to those Kyle Whittingham press conferences on Monday, and I really enjoy them because it's a rare opportunity that someone will speak at length on multiple questions and topics and really lay it out there, right? There's some things he doesn't want to tell us, so he doesn't. And he cuts off the line of questioning. I don't think he lies. I don't think he tells the whole truth because there are things that he just feels like are better kept out of the public eye, right? So under that old, in the movies, you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, right? Yeah. It's like a cliched line. You have to write in an old movie. So he doesn't tell the whole truth, right? They're just things he doesn't want to say. I think he thinks it's best that Cam moves on. I also think he is not going to say that out loud. He likes Cam. He respects Cam. He appreciates Cam. And he doesn't want to do anything to jam up Cam in the public eye. He's got too much respect, and there's too much loyalty there. But he also doesn't want to see Cam in a bad spot, and I think coming back for another year would be a tough spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be tough for Cam. I think it'd be tough for the team. It'd just be hard, right? But so he won't say that. And I think it's the same way. But when he said, I think he was telling the truth, when he said, I will do what's best for the program, I believe that he meant those words and that he chose those words on purpose. And he used that phrase more than once. So that made me think there is something out there that if he came back, he'd be in the way. I think at his core, he wants to coach because at his core, he loves football and he loves coaching football. And let's face it, he is handsomely paid. He's created his own universe. He moves comfortably in that universe as far as, the coaches he's interacting with, right? The players in the program. He likes it. So I thought he wanted to come back, but I thought there's definitely something out there. And I did wonder, and I don't know. I do wonder, is there an offensive coordinator or a quarterback who wants to come, but they don't want to put up with, hey, you for a year and then Morgan, and what am I signing up for? And this feels unstable. I don't know that I like this. I'll go somewhere with more stability. Or am I wrong? And he was thinking, this might be a good time to be it. And a coach says, hey, I don't want to start with a new coach. I'll do a year with you. I'll get to know him. Then we'll do it. I really like that plan. And then maybe Kyle thinks, well, I'm kind of on the fence, and that makes me come back because it's best for the program. I don't know what he meant specifically when he said, I'll do what's best for the program. But I really think if we could dig in there and if he wanted to tell us, there's a real meaning in that statement. But again, back to my point about telling the whole truth, he didn't want to tell that part of the truth.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, and I don't know what it is. Whatever that is, I don't think he wanted to put it out there. Because if he did, he would have. Because he moves really comfortably in his own universe. And he said stuff about football. And in one of his last, I don't know if his last one or the next to last one, he said, and I think spring football is going away. Like, he'll talk about the future of the sport in a way very few people will. I think spring football is going away. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
He drops one of those bombs every now and then. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, no.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's odd because the other sports, now the other sports don't have as much contact, but, there are other sports that have off-season programs. There are spring sports that do a little bit in the fall, and there's fall sports that do a little bit in the spring. And we'll get press releases about them. We don't cover them a lot in the media, but, there'll be a fall schedule for softball or for soccer or volleyball or whatever, something like that, or a spring schedule in case of a fall sport like volleyball. And they've got their off-season tours. So, in a way, that spring football, we're seeing that in other sports. I mean, these other sports, volleyball and basketball, take European trips. I assume other sports do, too. I just have heard basketball and volleyball people talk about them. And that doesn't really work in football because you can't go play Italian football teams, and guys might get hurt. And it just doesn't work for the sport. So that they would eliminate that off-season thing, that surprised me a little bit when he said it because that's not the direction other sports are going.
Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense. But, hey, he's been right about pretty much everything else on that stuff, so he knows. Yeah. One more thing. Hans yesterday believes that it might be too early to shut the book on the Isaac Wilson career at the University of Utah, that there are a lot of conversations, and it may just come down to dollars, and who knows, but that Utah is not giving up. It's not one of those things, you're in the portal, then you're dead to us, that the Utes will try to re-engage and try to repair that relationship. If you were a betting man and I gave you 100 Skittles, how many of those Skittles would you put on Isaac Wilson being in a Utah uniform next year?
Well, since you phrased it that way, none, because I don't know what's going to happen. If you said, I will give you 100 Skittles and you can put them anywhere on the board you want, I would. What is that thing where you're more into the gambling? There's a word for it where you cover your bet a little bit. You hedge your bet by betting the other way.
Yeah.
I would hedge my bet by betting the other way. I don't know enough about it, but I know there's a way to do that. I think what Hans says is right. Don't close the book. I think it could definitely go either way. If I were the team, I would want him back because the lack of depth at quarterback would frighten me to no end.
Yeah.
I mean, bringing in Devin Dampier, I watched 3 games. I watched that Montana State opener that they lost late. I watched the Utah State game, and I watched the Arizona game, right? So I saw him play, and I thought he was good in all those games, right? And then you look at his stats in other games, and he's good. And there are plenty of players who've been in the Big Sky or Mountain West who've gone to the Pac-12 or the Big 12 and looked good. So I totally get why the Utes are doing this. But what do they have behind him? He had 155 carries, Scott. 155 carries. You can get hurt in 155 carries.
Oh, yeah.
Who's up next?
Yeah.
Who's up next? So if they could get him back, the thing with Isaac's play this year, I thought there was some real potential early and some flashes early. There were some good things. He's obviously brand new. I love the way he improved week to week in his first month of play. I thought you could see the improvement week to week. No guarantees, but this is why they recruited him, and he's getting coached, and he's improving, so this is good, right? But once they started losing, he's a local guy. He wanted to be here. He knows the history of the program. Was he pressing? Oh, yeah, I think he was. Now, he's a freshman, and it goes back to what we were talking about with Falslip, be in the program, physical maturity, emotional maturity, experience, build on all those things. You can get better. So I can see real upside for him. But I assume other schools can too, right? And he was heavily recruited, not just locally with Utah and BYU, but Miami wanted him, Oregon wanted him, Arizona State wanted him, somebody else wanted him who was high profile, I'm forgetting. I don't know, maybe Louisville. But anyway, there were plenty of big-name programs out there. Now they're in different situations. Arizona State's gotten an experienced guy who's won a conference title coming back. He's got a couple of years of eligibility out in front of him, so that's maybe not a good fit. I don't know the situations and the fit. I don't know if he wants to play right away, if he's willing to sit a year and use a red shirt. I don't know if he wants to play behind a running quarterback where the odds of getting to play because the quarterback gets hurt in games 2 or 3, if that goes way up. And I don't know how he personally connects with the new offensive coordinator, right? Is there chemistry there or not? So there's a lot of questions. You brought up the NIL issue. Where is he offered the most NIL? You'd be crazy not to consider that. Scott, you and I have kids in their 20s, right? So we know what it's like. We talk to them, and we hear what it's like to launch the finances and, can I afford the rent? And if I'm going to buy a condo or a house, these college kids are making money. They can go out and buy property in a way their peers can't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They can go out and buy homes and really get ahead in life. That's just, we've always talked about, some kids come from impoverished backgrounds, which is still true. There are middle class and upper middle class kids who are thinking, how am I going to afford this? How long is it going to take to pull this off? College athletes who can go out and put down a down payment on a house and away they go. So, there's a lot to consider there. It could go any direction. If I were the Utes, I'd be interested in him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But if I'm other schools, I'd be interested in him. Kyle's already – there was a time when the portal was a brand new thing, and Kyle's big on loyalty, that when kids went in the portal, they were dead to him.
Done.
That switched 2 to 3 years ago, maybe earlier, but I know it switched 2 or 3 years ago. Mekhi Bernard went into the portal.
That's the big one.
There was a receiver before Mekhi, though, who went in the portal, and he was from Texas, and he had some family issue and wanted to be close to home. I'm forgetting who it was. But then he reversed, and something happened, and he decided he wanted to come back. And Kyle said in one of his press conferences, he says, we sat down, we talked about it. I heard his story. I heard where he was coming from. I looked at our team, and I think he'll be good for the team, and the team will be good for him, and let's do this. And that was a real pivot for Kyle, But it was why this is the old standard, but if it's good for the team, if it's good for the player, I understand why he did it. There was no malice towards the program. It was events out of his control. And so there have been other kids since then, but Mekhi Bernard would be the highest profile, most successful one. And he was welcomed back, and that didn't surprise me because Kyle had already done it with the receiver. So he'd do it here. And the kid's in a tough spot. He was recruited. The offense coordinator changes. They force-fed him to play before he was really ready. And, a lot of stuff happened around him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came back. I think Hans is right. Just keep the door open and see where this goes. No guarantees.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet the mortgage on anything.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us short notice, but always good catching up with you, DJ.
No jazz talk, huh?
5 and 18.
I'm old and I've been here a long time, but I haven't seen anything like this, and we don't really need to talk about it.
Yeah, amen to that.
I let them suffer in misery for 60 games, and hopefully they get a high draft pick and get somebody good and maybe do a little, if not some big game hunting, maybe even some medium-sized game hunting, and then you got something going forward.
By the way, I told Lloyd the story on the air, and I can't even remember what this was in regards to, Lloyd, about the time when I walked into a studio back at the old 1280, and I don't remember what I was doing, but I had a late night the night before or something like that, and he said, "Hey, working late, huh? You must be tired." And I said, and it's just a turn of phrase, like you don't really mean it. It just, you use certain phrases, and I said, "Oh, man, you have no idea." And the death glare I got from David James, who's widely considered the nicest guy in sports media, and 95% of the time, that's absolutely true. But that 5%, hell hath no fury. And it was a scary, scary moment. And I had to pivot away from that real quick. I was like Champ Bailey, dropping back, backpedaling as fast as I could.
Oh, man, that was hilarious. I definitely remember that moment. I definitely remember your look on your face, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I enjoy that right now. And I remember what studio we were in. That was 1, 2. That was like 3 or 4 studios.
I know. A long time ago, talking about being old, man.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Thanks.
That was awesome. Hey, we didn't talk about your Broncos. They're back, baby. That's a real football team.
You know what?
They are. They're real. I don't think they're going to go very far in the playoffs.
No.
Rookie quarterback. But they're legitimately good now. They couldn't throw the ball early in the year. They're 8-5. Did they start 0-2 or 0-3?
0-2.
0-2. So they're 8-3 in their last 11.
Yeah.
That's real.
It's so nice to not have the laughing stock. Like, again, one and done in the playoffs, totally fine with that. But that means, A, you're in the playoffs, and B, you're no longer the laughing stock of the NFL. And I'll take that right now.
Does everybody in the AFC who gets to the playoffs win 10 games? Because it looks like it's going to happen. I've thought it for a couple of weeks.
Yep, I think you're right.
I don't think Houston might, and that might be that division might not have a 10-win team. Maybe.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Lloyd's yelling at me. Need to go to break. All right. Thanks, DJ. There he is, the great David James, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. As we may not have time for a lengthy sports roulette. We'll try to spin the wheel coming up next, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. But remember, if you want to be a hero for Christmas, it's really simple. We can take the stress completely out of your Christmas shopping with the best blanket and gifts ever at Minky Couture. Save 50% off by using the promo code ZONE50 at checkout at minkycouture.com or visit any of the 6 Minky locations all up and down the Wasatch Front. I'm telling you, if you give your wife, your daughter, your mother, whoever, a Minky Couture blanket, you'll be a hero. It's that simple. minkycouture.com. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hanson Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, time for another edition of Sports Roulette. Before we do that, though, let's give away some more Jazz tickets. I know it's a little late. DJ and I went a little long, but we're still giving away Jazz tickets. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Call number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. Call number 12. You win a pair of tickets. See the Jazz and the Suns at the Delta Center coming up on Friday. All right, Lloyd, let's sneak in one story. Spin that wheel.
Leon Lett thought that was dumb.
Oh, hey, by the way, do you think the kids know who Leon Lett is?
I'm starting to think no. I
Probably
think
not. Leon Lett, who had one of the biggest gaffes in Super Bowl history. Now, granted, it was a blowout win. Cowboys were rolling, beating the Buffalo Bills. He picks up a fumble. All he has to do is waltz into the end zone. Easy touchdown. Instead, he starts showboating, and Don Beebe, how about that? A blast from the past, comes from behind, knocks the ball out, and keeps him from scoring a touchdown. Then, I believe a season or two later, the Cowboys are playing the Miami Dolphins, and Dolphins going for a game-winning field goal. It's blocked, but Leon Lett touches the ball down the field. Miami recovers, then proceed to kick the game-winning field goal. Well, last night, same Dallas Cowboy team in action, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, and former guest on the show and former Utah State Aggie, overall good dude, Nick Vigil busts through the line, blocks a punt late in the game, a tie game, 20 apiece. Bengals, Cowboys, and the Cowboys block the kick. Nick Vigil blocks it. And guess what? A player down the field, because it does cross, if it crosses the line of scrimmage, the same punt rules still apply. As soon as you touch it, that becomes a live ball. And Amani Arowai muffs the kick, tries to scoop it up. Bengals recover, and 3 plays later, score on a 40-yard touchdown pass, Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. And after that, the Cowboys unable to go the length of the field and get a game-tying touchdown with maybe a potential game-winning 2-point conversion. Never really close going forward. They're a mess offensively. They're a mess as a team. But congratulations, I guess, to Nick Vigil. Impressive block kick, but ultimately special teams screw it up for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, we'll wrap this thing up, get you ready for JJ and Alex next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I told you we went to this country writers thing in Nashville where you saw these different people that write hits, but mixed in the middle was this old timer. He sang a song about his dog dying. I'm not kidding. Like, there were people going, play a happy song, like yelling at this guy.
Be happy.
Be happy. Guy played like 3 songs and everybody was like, oh, I'm so depressed. Yeah. You know what? Read the room.
Yeah, right.
By the way, this. And he said before he sang the dog dying song, he's like, nobody's picked this one up. I can't figure it out. I can. The song was called For Pete's Sake, and the dog was named Pete.
It's a little on the nose.
I'm just coming to this theater to rock out on some country I barely like, and they got to sing about a dog dying.
Dying dog, for Pete's sake.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad, dude.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.